Let's discuss in this video some of the most important API testing interview questions and answers. This is going to be a deep dive session, not surface level definitions. These are the exact questions interviewers ask when they want to check whether you truly understand API testing or you just know how to use a tool. If you stay with me till the end, your clarity and confidence around API testing will be at a completely different level. Let's begin with the foundation. Whenever I am asked what is API testing, I explain it in simple words. API testing is about validating the backend business logic of an application without involving the UI. UI can change frequently, but APIs should remain stable because they power mobile apps, web apps, and third-party integrations. Through API testing, we verify whether requests are processed correctly, responses are accurate, data is stored properly, and business rules are enforced. This is why API testing is faster, more reliable, and extremely important in modern applications. The next question usually is why API testing is required when UI testing already exists. My answer is that UI testing checks user flow, but API testing checks logic. If the API is broken, the UI will also fail. By testing APIs early, we catch defects before they reach the UI layer, reduce dependency on front-end availability, and save both time and cost. Interviewers then ask, what types of APIs have you worked with? In most real-world projects, we mainly work with REST APIs and sometimes with SOAP APIs. REST APIs are lightweight, flexible, and mostly use JSON, while SOAP APIs are XML-based, protocol-driven, and work with WSDL contracts. SOAP is still common in domains like banking and insurance, while REST dominates modern web and mobile applications. A very common follow-up is the difference between REST and SOAP. REST is an architectural style that uses HTTP methods and supports multiple formats like JSON and XML, whereas SOAP is a strict protocol that uses only XML and follows a predefined contract. REST is easier to learn, faster, and simpler to automate, which is why it is preferred in agile environments. Then comes an important conceptual question. What is REST architecture? REST works on principles like client-server separation, statelessness, uniform interface, and resource-based URLs. APIs should not store client state, and every request should be complete in itself. This understanding shows architectural maturity. Interviewers also ask which HTTP methods you have used. I explain that GET is used to fetch data, POST to create data, PUT to update complete resources, patch to partially update, and delete to remove data. I also explain idempotency, which means calling the same API multiple times should give the same result. Get, put, and delete are idempotent, while post is not. Another strong question is, what are HTTP status codes and why are they important? Status codes tell us whether the request was successful or failed. Codes like 200, 201, 204 indicate success, while 400, 401, 403, 404 indicate client-side issues, and 500 indicates server-side problems. I always mention that status codes alone are not enough. Response body validation is equally important. Then interviewers ask how you validate API responses. I explain that I validate status codes, response structure, mandatory fields, data types, values, business rules, and response time. For example, if an API returns user details, I ensure the email format is valid and required fields are not null. This shows logical thinking. Another common question is, what is request and response in API testing? A request consists of URL, method, headers, query parameters, and body, while a response consists of status code, headers, body, and response time. Understanding request-response flow is fundamental. Now tools come into the picture. Interviewers ask, what is Postman and how you have used it? I explained that Postman is used for manual API testing, creating collections, managing environments, writing JavaScript assertions, running collection runners, and validating responses. It is excellent for learning and exploratory testing. They also ask what kind of assertions you have written in Postman. I explain assertions for status codes, response body values, schema validation, response time, and error messages. I also mention using environment variables to avoid hard coding. Another common question is, what is pre-request script and test script in Postman? Pre-request scripts are used to set up data before sending a request, like generating tokens or timestamps, while test scripts are used to validate responses after execution. Interviewers then ask how you pass data from one API to another in Postman. I explain that we extract values from one response and store them in environment variables, which are then reused in subsequent requests. This shows workflow understanding. Moving to SOAP, they ask what is SOAP UI and where it is used. SOAP UI is mainly used for SOAP API testing, handling WSDL, validating XML responses, namespaces, and fault messages. It is also used for security and load testing. They may ask what challenges you faced in SOAP API testing. I explain challenges like bulky XML, namespace issues, dependency on WSDL changes, and slower execution compared to REST APIs. Now automation questions begin. Interviewers ask what is REST assured. REST assured is a Java-based library used for automating REST APIs. It integrates well with Java automation frameworks and allows writing readable, maintainable API tests. Then they ask how you automate APIs using REST assured. I explain that we build requests using given when then syntax, send requests, and validate responses using assertions. We also parse JSON responses using JSON path. A very important question is how you design a REST assured framework. I explain that I separate configuration, request builders, utility methods, test cases, and reporting. Framework design matters more than tool usage. Interviewers often ask what is BDD in API testing. BDD focuses on behavior and readability, allowing tests to be written in a language understandable by both technical and non-technical stakeholders. This leads to Karate framework. Karate is a BDD-based API testing framework that uses Gherkin syntax and requires minimal coding. It is excellent for teams with mixed skill sets and fast automation needs. Then comes REST assured versus Karate. I explained that REST assured is powerful for Java-centric teams, while Karate is faster to implement and easier for beginners. Tool choice depends on project requirements. Performance testing questions follow. Interviewers ask, what is JMeter? JMeter is used for load, stress, and performance testing of APIs. It helps measure response time, throughput, and system behavior under load. They may ask how API performance testing is different from functional testing. Functional testing validates correctness, while performance testing validates speed, stability, and scalability. Another question is what metrics you analyze in JMeter reports. I explain metrics like response time, throughput, error percentage, and concurrent user handling. Security questions are very common. Interviewers ask how you handle authentication in API testing. I explain basic auth, API keys, bearer tokens, and OAuth 2.0, and mention dynamic token generation. They may ask what is OAuth 2.0 in simple terms. OAuth allows secure authorization without sharing credentials, commonly used in modern APIs. Another important question is, what are headers in API testing? Headers carry metadata like content type, authorization, and cache control. Incorrect headers can break APIs. Interviewers also ask what is JSON and why it is preferred. JSON is lightweight, easy to parse, human readable, and faster than XML, making it ideal for REST APIs. Then comes negative testing in APIs. I explain that negative testing ensures APIs behave correctly when invalid data, missing parameters, or unauthorized access is attempted. They also ask how you handle test data in API testing. I explain using dynamic data, environment based data, and avoiding hard coding. Another practical question is how you debug API failures. I explain checking logs, request payloads, headers, and comparing expected versus actual responses. Interviewers ask what common mistakes testers make in API testing. I explain focusing only on happy paths, ignoring edge cases, hard coding data, and not validating business rules. Then comes a senior level question how API testing fits into CI/CD. I explain that API tests run early in pipelines, give fast feedback, and act as quality gates. Finally, interviewers ask how API testing helps in career growth. I explain that API testing breaks UI dependency, accelerates automation learning, improves backend understanding, and makes testers more valuable in modern projects. I always conclude by saying that API testing is not about tools like Postman or Rest Assured. It is about understanding how systems communicate and how business logic works. If you master these concepts, interviews become conversations, not interrogations.